Oh, thank you.
Welcome everyone to the first session in our Designing Regenerative Change series, which will take you through different steps of the regenerative design process to bring your vision to life, or maybe to kind of enhance or refine certain elements of what you're already doing. So in these sessions, we will be guided through regenerative paradigms and principles and theory, and we're going to contextualize this within some real-world examples from Realliance members and partners. But I'll hand over to James to tell you a bit more.
Thanks so much, Jackie, and great to see you all. Thank you so much for being here. So throughout these series of webinars, we'll be looking, like Jackie said, at a design process and how you can bring your regenerative ideas to life. So we'll be looking at an adapted permaculture design process, which goes through a series to do with, in fact, should we look at it? We'll show you what the design series looks like. So throughout this series, we'll be looking at a few different ways of engaging with your work and design processes. So today we're starting with the idea of visioning. We often miss this when we're excited to dive into the work that we're planning to do, but how can you take time to sit with your community and the people who will be impacted by your work and vision possibilities of what could happen and what's possible with your regenerative work? So today we'll be exploring more about visioning, and throughout this series we'll be looking at different design steps, including mapping, so mapping your resources, what you have available to you, the land where you're working and other resources and stakeholders, how we can apply this to design, what's some processes to do with implementation, reflecting on your work, and then of course adapting to the many different contexts that you're working in. So we'll be exploring visioning today, but I know, Jackie, that you wanted to invite people to other Realliance work.
Definitely, and if you're joining us for the first time, this is just one series in the range of offerings we have to bring together a community of practice, a network of regenerative practitioners, particularly those who are operating kind of in and across the nexus of humanitarian and development contexts and, vulnerable situations of crisis. So if you're joining us for the first time, please do have a look at our website, realliance.org, join the network, get in touch with us, see how you can be a part of the network and see what other events we have going on. We've got more spaces for kind of peer learning and communication and more informal networking. And as always, the network is kind of expanding and developing from the insights of our members. So please do get involved, and we can continue this conversation through a variety of mediums and platforms.
Exactly. And those of you joining us right now, please feel free to put your ideas and your reflections in the chat box. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you so much for being here. And of course, we'd love it if you could introduce yourself in the chat box as well, too, acknowledging that this will be visible. So if you're introducing yourself, this will be visible to anyone who is watching the recording. So as we're going through these steps in the design process, we're starting with visioning. And Jackie, why do we start there?
Well, visioning in any kind of design, any project, any program is always important to kind of be planning what you want to do and taking that time to kind of reflect and see what you have around you. But particularly for kind of the Realliance networks and the context in which our members and partners are working, in situations of crisis, visioning is often completely overlooked. In more kind of traditional mainstream humanitarianism, we look at what's being done. Often there are what feels like shortcuts, things that sacrifice maybe the environment or, some aspects of human wellness, dignity. There's kind of a feeling of being rushed and having to cut corners, and there's a different school of thought that really sees crises and emergencies and these kind of rapid emerging contexts as opportunities. And there often is an opportunity to unfold some of these regenerative principles that we see more easily enveloped in development contexts. There still is that opportunity, even if you're reacting in a moment of crisis. And many of our members are operating in kind of disaster-affected environments and conflict affected environments. And so taking the time now to think through the design process and think through what visioning in a regenerative project means that you can act in the moment and limit harm to all these systems that we're working in from the very outset.
I think that's really powerful. And I think there's also, like you said, the opportunity to prepare, even if people aren't reacting to immediate crisis. We have many members who are working in spaces that we know there are going to be, emergencies and natural disasters. So the idea of preparing with your community and visioning for possibilities even before crisis, I think is very powerful too, like you say. So thank you so much. And like Jackie said, we'll be speaking to a few Realigns members and those in our communities and networks to hear about some experiences and how people have put this design step into action. So first of all, we'll be speaking with the wonderful Filipa from the Transition Network, who's going to be sharing a story with us of a time when she has put visioning into action with her community. So thank you so much, Filipa. It's great to have you here. Hello.
Thank you.
I'd love to ask you, first of all, why is it important that we start with visioning?
Well, saying it in a different way. One of these days, speaking with a friend who is a psychologist, she told me something that I really think that it's what I understand about my experience with things like visioning. She said something like the human brain does not see a difference between an experience that really happened or an imagined experience. So the human brain uses sees the information in the same way. So for me, visioning is like what children do as playing. That is having the experience of trying something, being inspired by that, and integrating the experience. So when reality comes, you build that kind of experience, right? So you are much more, you step in having the impression that you know what to do, right? So there is like you build experience by playing, you build experience by imagining, and on top, if you do it as a group, you do that glue as well. You experience the glue of the group together as collaboration, and dreaming together as a group of children that are playing together is one of the most inspiring, releasing, experiences that there is. And adults are capable of doing that as well. And the experience of happiness, as I've seen it, is really enormous and inspires people to make changes. And I have experienced several times that magic.
And is there a time when you've used visioning before in community? I'd love to hear.
I can tell you. I have a story. So I work with Transition Network, so the movement of initiatives that reimagine the world that we want to live in and put it in place. And I've done some work. So I was part of one local initiative in Portugal, in Porto Alegre. And at that point, my initiative, when it was launched in Porto Alegre, there was a big crisis in Portugal. So a big economical crisis. And that town is in rural Portugal near Spain, in a very, The average of age is very high, old post-industrial town. And I always got this when we started the initiative. It was in response to the depression of the people there, low resilience and very depressed people, and very disempowered, incredibly disempowered. And we started to do stuff there, inspiring stuff. And then I was part of a circle that was reflecting on gift economy. And that group was started by Charles Eisenstein, who is a philosopher from United States. And I was one of those people, because we were experimenting with gift economy in Porto Alegre because there was no money. So there was all this kind of question: how can you make an initiative, a transition initiative, work when there is no money, you know? So we were experimenting stuff like that. And there was a conversation about having this big conference in Lisbon, in a foundation that is called Gulbenkian, you might know it, that wanted to get to hold the space for this big conference on gift economy, and all these people would come to Lisbon. And we were having this talk, and then in my initiative, I was spending time in Portugal, and I was doing a lot of stuff. And we were part of a case study with the EU, with the European Union, in which some members of the Economic and Social Committee would be present in transition initiatives, working immersive work with us. So, and I had this woman from Greece, who was the director of the consumer rights organization in Greece, and she came to work with us, and she wanted to do some interviews of people in the local market. And our local market there is completely empty. It's like a ghost, because everyone goes to the big supermarkets now. So the local farmers are alone in this market. It's really horrible. And so I was doing an interview with this person, and so this Greek woman would give me questions in English, and I would make the question in Portuguese. And you know, when you are, it's so heavy, the air, that you feel your heart going heavy. And I was making the questions, and then there was one last question. There was, do you have hope? And she looked at me inside of my eyes, and she said, I'm waiting to die. And I was so heartbroken. I immediately took her in my arms, and we cried together. And it was really it was one of these moments that, even if it's not, someone, it is not, I cannot say that is the same thing like being in a war, or in a being, threatened, but it felt like a slow death, it was really horrible. And I was so shocked with that when I got home, and I had a message from Charles Eisenstein saying, so what do we do? And I said, I'm sorry, I don't have energy for that, to go to a conference in Lisbon. As everyone comes in and then you go away and that's it. And it does not make sense to me. I don't want to put my energy there. And he was very shocked with my story. And he said, you are right. So we should do something like that in a place where people are turning their backs to. What about your town? And I said, okay, so if I do it here, I want to do it with the logic of what gift is for me, So we started with 4 organizers. So I talked with the people in my my initiative. So and some people from the university in Lisbon was going to organize as well, and we started to work on what was the flame of gift. What was that? But we did not want to plan it, because for us, we really wanted that the people express their gifts and show people that were completely disempowered, completely dreamless, that they could plan it, But it was not an easy thing. And we knew that people were just waiting for us to decide and to put in place things. You see? So for me, the objective was to get a group to dream together. So we put in place a plan to get that group ready to dream together, you see? So my plan was just until there, and then we would see. So we had a plan for engaging people. So we worked on contents, on some comms, and a plan that we would have, for example, open every single week on a Saturday evening. There was an open door place where people would come in and have a drink and talk about what is this of what we called ajudada. That was in 2013. And so there was a whole process of engaging people in this. So explaining what is gift, what is your gift to your community, reflection about why the gifts in this system, in this, in this paradigm, they are not valued. Only just some of the gifts in our society, a little bit, like a slice of the gifts are valued. All the others are not. But how could we talk about those gifts again? And even if they don't worth money, what is the value that they have for your community? So we had this kind of a headline question that was, what is the gift you have for your community? And making this people expressing what they think that they have to add, that is invisible. And once we had this group, and a lot of reflection and a lot of expressing trauma, of worthlessness, and a lot of people without jobs, a lot of old people that in a town that does not offer any opportunities, you might know, in a big crisis. So people really disengaged and disempowered and all that. Once we had all that part that was talked, we did like this visioning process, and we organized it like that. So we were around 50 people in a circle, and we were in a room, and we just put, we wrapped the walls in paper, all of it, up, down with paper. And we had 3 scribes writing on the walls. And then we did like accompanied meditation. And we invited people to imagine they were going on a walk from one side of the city, the town, to the other side. And it was the day of the party, of the conference. And the conference were 3 days, right? So, but it was, it's the day, and you are going to walk and you are free to imagine the most incredible things that you are seeing as you walk. So, and then it was me who made that walk. So I would really, I had done that walk already. So I knew exactly, if you look at on your left, you see this, and I would accompanying them, walking together, all together, from one part of the town to the other. And then in the end, so it was very calm, describing the sun and the heat and inviting people to feel on their skin, what does it feel, calling to the body and all that for sensations and so on, and not really giving them too much direction on what they should experience. And then in the end, we open the circle for what they've seen. And then the scribes would write on the walls what they have seen, and they would put the name of the person. And so the dreams could be, one of my favorites was in the corner of the little shop of flowers, there was a little chair, 2 chairs, and when one person telling stories, love stories, and then there was like I remember that one, or there was a known tree that had messages of gifts that were present in the town. There was, and we and some very complicated and very technical as well, and everything was written around. A lot of crying, so a lot of emotion. There was people really emotional about all that, and by their own experience, but as well to listen to the others' experiences. And I tell you one thing, months later, all the dreams that were written in the walls, they were made. They became reality. So the day of the conference, it was 3 days. The first day was the idea or the essence of Ajudada was, what is the expression of your gift? So it could be all kinds, it could be an intellectual gift, it could be something else you know how to do, and could be, so there was the day of the head, the day of the heart, and the day of the hands. So, and we occupied the whole city. So there were workshops inside of the houses of people, in schools, in the university, in the cinema, on the streets. There was the little chair with the person telling love stories, and you had all this kind of deep reflection about what was gift. There was cinema on the street, there was yoga, there was all kinds of things, 92 workshops functioning at the same time. And in the beginning there were 4 organizers. In the end we have like 150 organizers. The youngest was 8, was the responsible for the trash, and the oldest was 89, I think. And we served 500 meals per day. Everyone coming had a place to sleep. There was a bus coming and going from Lisbon. We had 3 philosophers present. Charles was there as well. And the budget of all that was 2,000 euros. Yes. 2,000 euros.
Thank you so much for sharing this. And those who are listening, I'd love to ask Filipa if you have any advice for people who are taking this on and visioning in their own communities, and visioning about what's possible. What would you advise for people? Because it sounds like some of the things that you've said, it can be quite challenging to hold space for people who, might have some trauma healing to do first and might have to go through a process first. So thank you so much for sharing this. And what's your advice?
It is difficult to say, because I think that a lot of the things that we have done had an enormous result, and I learn with others, right? Because in the transition movement, this is one of the tools, is the visioning. Because we really think that visioning is like what pulls you, into, as a group, and that we experience this kind of, we feel empowered. We experienced the possibility that we, in fact, is possible. It's that we can do it. But I know that a lot of things I would have added stuff, and it is important to really work on the trust of the group, build the trust of the group, because dreaming together is, if you do it so deeply as we have done, because it could be something else, it could be just visualizing something. There are scales of it, you don't have to be, you can have like you and I together having like a brainstorming of something that imagine this and imagine that, and we go there and we will do, this is visioning, right? So, and I can tell you another thing. So we can have this like playing, having, imagine that we can do, and someone adds something and say, oh, and we would do this and we would do that. And this is already visioning. In this case, there was so much trauma in the group that not even this playing around with creativity was possible. Because in the moment that we started to do like a conversation, imagine that we would do that, someone would say, well, then the mayor is not going to let us, we are going to have difficulties. So you see, the group needed to have a real place for accompaniment to be able to dream. And some groups need to work on trauma before. I don't think to say that to a group that has been under horrible conditions, you cannot just do that, because it even feels not respectful of the pain, So I think that it's very important to give space for grieving first, and to talk about the things that are not okay, to give space for positive dreaming after, because otherwise I don't think that people can be full in this dreaming process. You need to allow them to be in the space of grieving, I think. Because otherwise, if you don't have the grieving necessary, that's most of us who come very privileged in our lives, we can do that kind of dreaming easily, in this kind of way of even playing around. Imagine what would happen if we would go, you and I, have a picnic in this mountain full of flowers that are not flowers, that are fluffy, whatever, and we would be very easily doing that, but this is not the case for always in all conditions. So I would say that space for people to be, or a process for people to allow people to be in a space of dreaming and visioning first. And then to create the process that is in scale with what you want to do. Because it could be easy to have like a laugh and imagine this, and then you add, and you don't need to close your eyes and do the dreaming all the time. And sometimes people feel really uncomfortable with that, so you might want to work in a group like that as well. And it could be a process of theater as well. It could be like a lot of people do that, the theater, how do you call when you don't have a play, you just go in and things happen in like theater, role playing and things like that. It is a way of dreaming as well. Improv, yeah. So yeah, and there are other examples of that, and I would advise the book of Rob Hopkins. Now there is the From What Is to What If. He talks about one particular event of dreaming, a collective dreaming. We were like, I don't know how many we were, but we were like 200 people. And it has been transformative. I know it was in a conference, a Transition Network conference, and I know a lot of people changed their lives after that. So, including Rob, who had in his dreaming process, there was like dreaming a town, and he had in his dream, well, we all had things to do in this town, and he had a brewery, and in the end he opened one. So yeah, so, and a lot of people I know changed their lives after that. So that.
Well, a huge thank you for joining us, Filipa. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom. Thank you, and I hope to catch up soon.
Thank you. And I thank to all of you. I hope that you work well. And like we say in Portuguese, beijos a todos.
Now, just like Filipa said, it's very important to start by mapping who are the people that you're working with, who are the people that are joining the visioning exercise. Because for some people, like Filipa explored, it is important to hold space in a different way depending on where people are. And I know many of our Realigns partners who are calling in are working with people who have experienced displacement or experienced environmental crisis. So people may need to be held in a way that is slightly different, also recognizing the amazing resilience of people. So it's important to map who is it that you're working with first of all, and how might you work with them in a way that draws out the best in people while also recognizing where people are and recognizing that different people may have very different needs. So first of all, who are you working with? And that might help you to create a safe container for holding the work. And when we say a safe container, we're talking about a space where people feel able and feel safe to vision. They're not in immediate harm's way. They feel that they are able to talk and not have any repercussions. So it's important to hold space in a way that people feel safe and are able to share. So this is one thing to consider before you even start the visioning process. Who are the people that will be joining you, and what are their needs? How can you create a space where their needs are met for this time that you're together so that they can feel safe to share their vision? And then Filipa also touched on the importance of a good question. What is the question that can best draw out the vision of this community you're working with? Or maybe you're working in a team. We've been speaking about communities and visioning in community, but maybe it's a team that you're working with, a team of your organization, or just a smaller group of people. So there are, whatever situation you're working in, there are some commonalities, I think, with the questions that you might ask. And I think one important thing is that it's an open question. So what do we mean by open questions? There are open questions and there are closed questions. Closed questions are very useful to get quick information. They're questions where you get a yes or no answer. They're closed. They don't invite conversation. It's about getting quick information. It's questions that yes or no, like, do you need this, yes or no? Whereas open questions invite thought and invite conversation and invite you to think a bit deeper. One simple way to think about framing an open question is by starting it with what, where, who, how, words like this. So what could this village look like in 5 years, as an example? So it's not a yes or a no. You're not getting a yes or a no. It's something that's very open. So that's why we call them open questions. How might we best work together to achieve our goals? That's another open question. It's inviting a longer answer, a longer conversation. So as you're thinking of a question to help people vision what could be achieved, what are the possibilities that could be achieved together, start by thinking, how can it be an open question? And then once you have the safe space, the safe container to hold the group in, you've thought about who the group are and what their needs are, you've thought about the question that you might ask people to get people thinking. Now comes the process of how you do this. So you obviously want people to feel safe. You obviously want people to feel like they are able to share. Some people might like to have space to close their eyes and almost dream of what the possibilities are and really take time to reflect on the question you've asked. And of course, some people won't connect to that and won't want to close their eyes and won't want to go through the process of dreaming like this. But they might like to draw their answers. They might like to have a pen and a paper, or they might like to be creative and do painting to bring out their vision. So you can explore different ways to vision. So I'd love to welcome you to take time to experience visioning yourself. So just to see what it feels like to vision and put it into practice. So this is one way that you could guide community through a visioning process as well. So I invite you to find a comfortable space. Find somewhere where you can still listen to my voice and engage with the chat box as well too if you like. But really feel yourself against the ground. So maybe your feet are against the ground, or maybe you're sitting in a chair. Feel yourself in a comfortable place and take some time to get comfortable. Maybe you take a deep breath in, a deep breath out, really being grounded in the space where you are. Now I'd love us if we could go on a little journey together. So for a couple of minutes, we're going to take each other on a journey. We're going to go on a journey together. And I'd love for you to imagine that you are going home tonight. You're heading home and you're heading to bed, going to bed. It's been a long day. You're really ready for bed. And as soon as your head hits the pillow or hits the bed, you are asleep. And while you're sleeping, something funny happens. It's almost like you're going through a portal through time. You feel your body rushing through a magical portal as you're sleeping. And when you wake up in the morning, it is 5 years from now. So you wake up You think, oh, this is very strange. You look around you because things are slightly different. It is 5 years into the future, and all your visions for your work, all the things that you would have hoped of, all the positive dreams you had for your work have come into reality and are real. So you have woken up in a world where all your hopes and dreams for your work have become reality. So you get up from your bed and you look around. Maybe you go outside, walk around the world around you, see other people. What's different? What's unique in this perfect future world? What looks different? Maybe you walk around a little more, you go and see some people that you notice. What do they say? What do they tell you about this future world that's different? Now take your own time to look around this perfect future world, the space where you are. What looks different? What feels different about this perfect 5 years from now? And when you're ready, you feel so exhausted from all of this positive energy that you're noticing, and you're ready to go back to bed already. So you go back to your home, get into the bed, and go to sleep. And again, magically during the night while you're sleeping, you transport back into your body in the present day and wake up here and now in your body. And maybe you want to blink your eyes open if your eyes were closed. Maybe you want to stretch. And maybe you also want to take a moment to write down in a book or on your phone what you noticed about this future world and in your vision. Maybe you're also very welcome to share in the chat box how you found that experience, because this is just one way that we can vision together what is possible with our work. It's just thinking into the future and thinking what could be. What could this perfect future look like? So even before we start to actually implement the work, even before we start to design what are the steps we need to take to get there, just thinking about it, just visioning, either yourself or with your team or with your community, visioning what is possible is really powerful, because it shows us this kind of future perfect. And then we can work out the steps of how we get there. Then we can start to think of the things that we need and start mapping the resources that we already have. But first of all, thinking what could be possible. This is really important. And next, I'd really love to invite another special guest, Jane Wegesa Fraser. I'd really love to welcome Jane from the Regenerosity team and ecosystem restoration camps. Welcome, Jane, and thank you so much for being here. And Jane is going to tell us another story about when she has put into practice this visioning exercise as she was designing a program with community. So Jane, thank you so much for calling in, and over to you.
Hi, my name is Jane Wegesa Fraser, and from Kenya. I recently designed with the community a community-based approach project. And what we did is that we asked the chief, who is the local authority of the area, to organize the community so that we can share and listen and brainstorm on how we can improve the livelihoods in the land, in the landscape that they are living on. And they set up a date, and we came together and sat, and shade, some trees and a shade. So in that baraza, we call it baraza, the community open air kind of meeting, and we asked the community to tell us how they feel about their landscape and about what kind of challenges they're facing on their landscapes. And they told us about how they're facing a lot of challenges. They don't have enough pasture for their cattle. They don't have enough food for their children. They don't have enough resources for their financially. And therefore, we asked them, is there a way in which they know that we can design something or train them on the way they can improve the way they utilize their land? And they were very, very happy about that. They would love to learn about regenerative agriculture, permaculture designs, and food forest and kitchen gardens. And we asked them to select people who understand a little bit of Swahili and English, people who can read and write, about 30 of them, and they selected from different villages people who can read and write, and they came together, and therefore we thought now we can design a project on one piece of property whereby they can train and understand to do the work, and then they can replicate that on their individual farms. And it was very nice because what happened is that the land that we were going to design, we were there, and we showed them how to make things like banana circles, and they were looking at it and wondering, oh, banana circle, so what is that? We don't know how to plant bananas in that way. We only dig a hole and put a banana, and bananas don't do here anyways. So it was very, very nice to see how they marveled at the kind of systems we are using. We did a banana circle together with them. They measured. We showed them how to measure on paper. We went on the ground. We measured. They dug. And then we did the contours. We measured with them the contours to slow down runoff on the land, to make sure there is enough storage of water on the land. Then we created what we call half moons, and they learned how to create all these nice systems that slow down, that harvest a lot of water and retain it on the land so that it can be productive. We showed them how to mix soil and sand and manure, and also put it in the land so that it can be, because they had hardpan kind of soil, and therefore this will make the soil a little bit nice and fertile for crop. And they were very happy about that. They have a lot of manure in their land. They didn't know what to do with it. Now they're using it to grow crops. So we trained them, we showed them, and we exchanged notes. They shared with us what they do, how they do. They plant their food, how they couldn't mix crops because they thought there would be a lot of competition for nutrient. And now they are seeing that even if you mix crop in a way that does not have competition in the crops, it is okay because they grow together and they just mimic nature, and each one produces on its own, and they have plenty of food. So it was a system that they wanted to learn, and they realized that it is workable, and now they are replicating that on their land. It's a success story when you hear about going there and a woman says, oh my God, I didn't know I can get tomato from my land and get onions from my land. I just go there, plug out an onion and plug up a tomato and go and cook for my husband some food without really going to the market to buy all this stuff. They are very, very enthusiastic. They are very happy. They are implementing this on their farms. And we feel that if we showed these women and men with small farms or big farms, but they didn't know how to do these things, we just showed them how to do it, it's very, very effective. You don't push it on them. They participate step by step, decision making step by step. They agreed to find the land. They agreed to work together as a team, and it was beautiful. So if we just bring them together and show them this is what you do. And what they're doing right now is they're going together into one farm, do the work, and then go into another person's farm, do the work, and then go into another person's farm and do the work together as a group. So it's learning process and knowing to do things together as a community. That is what I loved about this project. So thank you for now. And
thank you so much for joining this session. It has been such a pleasure to share space with you and our fantastic guest speakers. We can't wait to see you in 2 months' time for our next Designing Regenerative Change series, where we'll be exploring mapping and how you can map resources, map your space, and why it's important to survey the space where you're working and the stakeholders that you're working with.
Definitely. Can't wait to continue through this process and meet the rest of our guests. Thank you everyone for joining us. It's always great to have your participation, and feel free to come back to this video. This will stay here online so you can kind of revisit any of the exercises or the stories, and comments will continually be added, so there's always room for discussion there as well. But the best way to come back to us and to hear about the rest of this series and other events, and to participate fully in the network and speak with the kind of wealth of knowledge and wisdom that we already have, is by joining the network. So if you're not yet a member of Realliance, get in touch with us. We would love to collaborate with you and have you as part of this growing community of practice. So thank you again, and I hope to see you soon.